What's up, guys? Beau Burchell here, and in front of me I've got the Nail the Mix April tracks for Dangerous Summer. Let's begin. Let's talk about de-essing and SE vocals. Here's what I've got. Let's just take everything off here. Here's our raw vocal. And I'm just gonna kind of go through this first part because I think there's a lot of S's in here.
So as my hope, and why can't I just try? So as my hope, and why can't I just try? So as my hope, and why can't I just try?
So yeah, it's pretty bright. But the S's are bright, not necessarily the overall like edgy, I'll call it like the edge or the grit of his vocal isn't necessarily as pronounced as the S's. Sometimes I've found that this usually happens from a cheap mic, but I'm guessing that's not the case on this month because I could be wrong, but I feel like this is probably tracked with some quality gear. I think that let's just take a look at what's going on.
So as my hope, and why can't I just try?
So you can see in here this kind of, what is this, 4 to 7K has a pretty big dip there. And that's kind of like the top edge of where a vocal would be. And then your S's are kind of landing way up here, like almost in the like 15K area. And, you know, that's just like a real spitty, wild range to be in. You know, usually with a vocal that's real SE, you would just slap an de-esser on there and call it a day. But I'm going to show you why that does not work. And I'll show you what I did to the vocals first. So first what I did, just to kind of level these out, is I threw an L1 on there.
So as my hope, and why can't I just try? So as my hope, and why can't I...
And you can see what it's doing, just barely anything at all. Just kind of barely taking off these little tiny transients here before I go into, I really like this Brainworks SSL channel. And all I'm really doing is giving it a little bit of a 1K boost here. And you can kind of see what that's doing here.
So as my hope, and why can't I just try? So as my hope, and why can't I just try?
So not really much going on here. I do have this kind of harmonic distortion thing kind of gauged up to get a little bit more of that upper mid-range to pop out a little bit. Next up, I have another limiter because like I said, this is already compressed. And when you're compressing something that's already compressed, you're bringing up all of these, like, you know, the low volume items. And you know what, let me just show you this. Sorry, this is popping into my head right now. So I think it's kind of a cool thing to do to show you what happens. So we can actually just process this. Now, I recently upgraded to Pro Tools 12, so all this is like kind of new to me. It's like magic. So we'll take this region here and we'll just hit freeze. And then we can actually see what it looks like, all these in-between files, what they look like once I've done 2 instances of L1 and the Brainworks console. Not much, you see? Like these little in-between breaths and the S's type of stuff, they don't really get brought up too much compared to what it was, see? But if you were to take something like a CLA 76 and freeze that, this should bring these way up. I didn't even look at the setting, but we'll see. Yeah, see, those get brought way up, and you still have all these kind of transients, which sometimes is cool, but for this track, like I said, I feel like it's already compressed. We're not trying to get any more compression out of it. I'm just kind of trying to level it out a little bit. So I'm going to bail that out. So that's a reason why, you know, just looking at this, you probably don't want to compress it anymore because you're just making your life harder. So I'm going to stick with that, with the L1. Now, first off, again, like I said, the area that we're dealing with is kind of up in this 10K area here, but I do feel like we're lacking here. So what I did is exactly that. So here it is with this EQ on here.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend up in the atmosphere, and another reason.
To me, that sounds way better. Here it is with it on again.
So where's my hope? And
here it is without it.
so where's my hope? And why can't I just try?
And if you've noticed too, so to me, the reason why I've chosen to dip way up here is because if you really pay attention to when he's saying, so where's my hope? Why can't I just try? I think that's what he's saying, right?
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try?
I think he's saying, why can't I just try? But the can't and the try, the T's are a little bit lower in frequency than the S's, and the T's don't really bother me. And I think what a lot of people had issues with is when they were de-essing, they were kind of just de-essing this whole area up here. So every time that de-esser would kick in, it was just like boom, 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 and you're just slamming that whole area, but you're just making him sound like he has a lisp, and that's not exciting and it's not cool. So to me, this is a way better approach. Just cutting out the area that you're not happy with. And like I said, I wanted a little bit more edge in the vocal, so I'm bringing that up.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die.
So to me, that sounds way better than what it was, but it's still nowhere near to be like ready. I still feel like these vocals are a little dark where they're gonna land like in my mix. So I'll just listen to it in context now.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot.
Yeah, way not happening enough. So I have another SSL-E channel on here doing like 2.3 dB at 3K, another 3.6 shelf at 8K, and that should kind of bring this a little bit more to the front. Here's what here's that on there.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try?
It's getting there. It's getting a little bit better. Again, those S's really slamming at the top. So I'm putting a shelf at, what is this, 8.5K. And notice the Q that I did here, because I really wanted to kind of bring up a little bit, like I said, that same area, and you can kind of see it here. I'm gonna mute my bandmaster for this.
So where's my hope? So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die.
And here it is without it.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die.
And then with it on again.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die.
And you can kind of see how this is starting to even out, like that kind of 3 to the 8K area that I was talking about, where I felt like there was a dip in the vocal there in like the presence of the vocal, but then at the top end, ducking that down a little bit. But it's still not sick yet. So I'm gonna pull up our Magic plugin Soothe, and this is something that I'll sometimes put on kind of like a vocal master bus thing for me. And here, and you can see it's just, I think the trick with de-essing vocals is that, you know, with like right now with compression, and you know, I would put de-essing in with compression, because that's all it's really doing is it's compressing, it's you know, lowering the volume of just the top end or the S's or whatever selected frequency range you're doing. And right now, like with compression, like the hot item right now is parallel compression, but I think no one really talks about serial compression, which is basically stacking compressors or stacking de-essers or stacking multiband compressors. So that's kind of something that I'm doing here, and with each one, I'm just doing a little bit. So here is what Soothe is doing on this.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend to be.
So same thing. You can see there, it's barely getting like 1.5. I'd say maybe that's 2 dB because right in the middle here is 3 because that's 6. So maybe 1, possibly 2 dB of reduction every once in a while. Following that now, I've got this instance of Fabfilter Pro MB crossed over at around, where is this even at? Does it even show me? There it is, at around 9K with a pretty steep curve on it. 24 dB per octave slope. So here's, you know, like I said, just chipping away at it.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend up in the atmosphere, and another reason not to fear the sky.
So if you've noticed here, the way I have it set, like I was talking about with this, with the S's versus the T's and the C's, it's really only, I'm trying to really only make this hit on the S's because that's what's bothering me, and the C's and T's are very important to keep in there. Otherwise, you lose everything and you lose all the presence and all the excitement out of a vocal that you're trying to add, and that he was probably trying to add while he was tracking with the compression, because that brings everything up and it makes it exciting. But when you take away that top end, it loses it. But like I said, there's a fine line that you got to keep some of that in there and not totally sterilize it. So watch this again as I play it. Just notice how it's mainly the S's.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend up in the atmosphere, and another reason not to fear the sky.
So I mean, it registered on the got, but barely at all. And again, you can see that I'm just barely tickling it. So, but to me, in the mix, it's still needs a little bit more de-essing. So here, let's listen to this in the mix now.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend up in the atmosphere, and another reason not to fear the sky. Not tonight.
Still needs a little bit more. So I'm gonna go another one. And I think it looks like I probably just dragged this down like that. And don't be afraid to stack stuff, especially when it comes to things where you're just trying to slowly chip away at certain elements. So again, I'm gonna solo this vocal again and just listen to what it's doing and see where it's reacting.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend up in the atmosphere, and another reason not to fear the sky. No, not tonight.
Let's hear how that sounds in the track.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend up in the atmosphere, and another reason not to fear the sky. No, not tonight.
Now, let's look at it on the analyzer here, because I don't know if you noticed it, but when we were in the Pro MB, you could see a bunch of this mud coming mainly from my effects and other things, because I haven't done any high passing yet. So let's watch it here.
So where's my hope? And why can't I just try? You know I've lost a lot, but I won't let this die. You know I've got this friend up in the atmosphere, and another reason not to fear the sky. Not tonight.
That sounds way better to me. And you can notice here too, also in that kind of 5 to 10K area, it's really kind of smoothed out a little bit, and it sounds more present, but not harsh as much. But I'm still trying to keep as much of those S's as I can, but you know, not to the point where it's tearing my head off.